everyone. It's the Fausty Witches. I don't know where the hell Chris has gone. I think he's doing something important like booking stuff in. But today is an extra special episode because it's an episode that is a revolving around a subject which I really fucking like, right? It's an exciting subject, which is the magical defense and offense. We haven't even got basically anyone commenting or anything yet, but I have already got a list of demands of 2 questions that we've definitely got to cover from someone I spoke to earlier. Okay, so what I'll do is Mr. Chris is just getting himself sorted, but I'll run over what we're talking about. Magical defense, okay, protective magic. Now, we're not talking about the sort of defensive magic today that's really got loads to do with, oh, I'm worried about spirits popping into my house, or I've just moved into my new house or just bought a new car, I've got to do something. We're talking about we're going to go and do some naughty things, and we don't want the things coming back on us. Mr. Chris, are you there? You haven't got your microphone on though, have you?
Is that working?
That is much better. Well done. Oh dear. Right, so this is the sort of thing our dear friend Lady Snake would kill for. Knowledge she would kill for, because as we all know, she's obviously a little bit worried when it comes to essentially any sort of magical practice or anything. We've already got our first person. Hello, Mr. Liam. Hope you're well. And Mr. Chris, looking forward to this one. Look, there's a buzz in the air, Chris. I can tell there's a buzz in the air because they know a mischief they're making is going to happen. That we're going to teach them the important stuff that they never got taught at school or at Hogwarts, right? Which is mainly how to do naughty things and then to get away with doing the naughty things, Chris. That's what they want to know today, how to get away with it. Because the mummy and daddy and the teachers, they were always interested in, you'll get your comeuppance. Don't do something naughty, little Timmy, or you'll go in the sin bin, get detention, or get a smack. What we're actually talking about today is doing naughty things and getting away with it, Chris. You see? Have you ever gotten away with a naughty thing, Chris?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't do naughty things. I'm the nice one, right?
Well, you've just lied then, you know?
Did I get away with it?
You've basically just told a massive lie. Why are you lying?
The fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god. Stop fucking lying.
Wow.
Cycle memes at this point because I haven't pulled my finger out to actually get something done. Although there is something, seeing as we're talking a little bit about, I don't know, shenanigans related to espionage and such. You know, maybe later on you can give us away some of your super duper KGB defensive magical techniques, right? Because I've heard something and I don't think I can forget it, and it involves you and it may be secret society you may or may not be part of.
Okay. Sure. Whatever you say, Liam.
Right. You're obviously not going to answer the question that I asked about have you ever done anything naughty, so maybe you can answer the question.
Was that a genuine question? Sorry.
It was a genuine question, but you're going to breeze over it because you always fucking breeze over the questions like that because you don't want anyone knowing your business, right? Which is very magical. You don't want to know, you don't want too many witches knowing about your business, I suppose, do you? So I'll ask you a question that I actually expect an answer for, because he said it's not about you personally, it's about more observation, yeah?
Okay.
Your observations of magical practitioners, the one that have some gumph that actually decide that they might want to tackle something or someone that can fight back. Okay, we're not talking the airy fairy love and lighters, the ones that cower in the corner under the desk. Okay, we're talking about the ones that say, I'm gonna stand up for I'm going to do something about it. The little kid that picks on the big bully. That's what I want to talk about. Ever seen that happen, Chris, in your observations throughout time and space and such?
Well, there was this guy called David,
Right.
and he went and beat this other guy called Goliath. But we're not talking that time ago. We don't mean biblical.
I get what you're saying because David was smaller than Goliath, but let's be fair, Goliath never fucking stood a chance. I mean,
poor Goliath.
David was hurling granite rocks at God knows what miles an hour. Goliath would have probably been luckier. He would have probably been more likely to survive a gunshot than some young sprightly boy firing granite rocks at them. I mean, let's be fair, our good Christian friends like to chuck that old story out, don't they? They like to bring it out in Christmas and such. But if you're thinking about it, you've got some kind of ogre, more than likely with special needs, not quite all of there. And then you've got some kid that's able to fire what is essentially bullets at the person. Who was going to win in that fight? Come on. I'm sorry, I'm not accepting that underdog. Also, there is no fucking magical practice involved, Chris.
Okay.
Magical practice whatsoever. So now, don't you know a certain someone that has been in various witch wars and all that sort of thing? There was someone that had a little problem kidnapping angels at one point, wasn't there?
We can't be talking about that.
You're not hanging with such people now.
I wouldn't hang around with such people. No, of course not. Okay. So you want people that. Okay. Right. Okay. Simple. So we're talking about people that are willing to defend the undefendable. Is that what we're talking about? We're talking about heroes.
We're basically talking about when you decide to go up against someone else and you go out, as you do, Chris. I know you're a bit rowdy. You know, they wouldn't think it. When you go out with the lads on a Friday or Saturday night downtown and you have a few jars, pints, alcoholic beverages, okay? Bevies, right? And you get it all up and you decide, I'm going to teach this fucking prick a lesson. I don't like the way he looked at me. And you go and you swing for him, as we can all imagine you would on a night out, right? We all know you're the type to do that. You are expecting retaliation, yes? You've thrown the first punch, yeah, and you are now going to have to defend yourself. You know, you've got to defend yourself. You're expecting punches back. Now, we talk about defensive magic in terms of general, I will be nice to everyone, and if someone nudges me, I ain't going to say, oi, mate, fuck off. You're going to say, oh, I'm very sorry, it was my fault, even though you rammed into me purposefully, you know? Chris is the sort of person to turn around and say, oi, what the fuck? You know? And then knock the fucker out, aren't you, Chris? You know, that's very much your style, yeah? Or are you going to snap your fingers and he's going to fall to the ground dead? Well,
that is my kind of go, but we're not talking about me.
There's been similar manifestations which have happened that I'm aware of. But either way, is it retaliation, defending yourself against retaliation? You're the bad guy, Chris, for a change. Imagine, I know you're wearing white and you're pretending, you know, your whole altar boy get up glamour thing that's been going on, right? That's the glamour magic. Someone's going to tackle the altar boy. They've worked out that there, Chris, you know, he's bad seed. I'm coming after him because he's been the source of all my woes. All my woes. I've suddenly worked out is actually that little fucker there, right? So, what will you do to defend yourself?
I would be prepared for the swing and make sure the swing doesn't land.
The swing. Right. So you're attempting to acknowledge the fact they'll be throwing a punch. You might not want to be in the way of the punch, and you will deflect. Chris, deflect. Deflect, yes? Been doing your kung fu skills, mad magical kung fu.
My mad kung fu when I'm out with the lads.
Right, Kung Fu Panda.
Rude. Don't know why we had to bring size into it, or black or white.
So, what does that look like from a magical perspective? Because the equivalent of hurling a punch is these witches, that the low-level variety, the ones that like to hex and curse each other backwards and forwards. Like a really, you've watched tennis, it's boring as fuck, right? You go. It just goes backwards and forwards, right? So, stopping them from doing a magic, because we all know bundling up that energy, firing it out. Or if you're in the playground and you're one of those annoying sorts, getting my older brother to sort you out. If they get some spirit stress, they get the spirits, they can't cope with you themselves, you know. You're the bully. They're going to get their older brother, which basically means probably some wet wipe like Archangel Michael or something like that. You've had run-ins with him before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the problem is if we're talking about me and it was, you know, their older brother in the playground, then there's probably, I've already got history with that older brother of theirs.
If they're old.
Rude.
Well, I mean, you know, if it's an older brother, then the chances are you probably, you know, they're aware of you, aren't they? You've got a reputation, a sinister reputation.
I don't know what you mean, Liam. Yeah, so the obvious would be to deflect. So the obvious would be that you've not where the blow is going to come when it meets. So that requires you being a swifter practitioner than they are, and being able to not be in the place that they're expecting to fire at when it's fired.
Would you say that you're as good as at deflecting hexes and curses as you are at deflecting questions?
Somewhat better, actually.
Somewhat better. Well, there we go. We're in the presence of a master, clearly.
However, my favourite way is actually to absorb said punch, but that's just because, you know, I is the Kung Fu Panda. Skadoosh.
Like doing a whole pie may thing where they punch it and then they're trying to pull their fist away and you've just kind of grabbed it. Yeah, like that. Okay. So eating the energy, because there's an abundance of energy flying about all over the place. Chris is the sort of person that thinks, I won't turn down that meal. I'll have that, thank you very much, because we don't turn down a free meal. We hear a lot of people talking about this, so say at the higher echelons of the magical society, mainly Wiccans that don't know any better, thinking that when they reach the level where they can transmute energy, that they're somehow safe, which of course is complete bullshit.
Total bollocks.
Yes, because there's always a bigger fish, Chris, isn't there? And sometimes it's not about the energy being fired, it's about how and where that energy is going from to what is interfering with. Okay, so there's this idea generally of what are you targeting. A lot of this witch warsy to-ing and fro-ing is very low level. Okay, it's kind of astral world or below. Problem is, if you've got a magical practitioner that is able to see, sense, feel, touch and manipulate things above that level, and you've got some poor little lowly little Timmy witch who cannot sense anything above the astral level, when that big bad practitioner goes and targets him and fucks up another aspect, a higher aspect of little Timmy, that's then going to filter down, isn't it? You know, that's the problem, isn't it? It's attacking them on a level they cannot comprehend, and then it trickle down. We've seen that before a number of occasions with professional psychics where they've had work and they do this. Oh, it's always a fucking Reiki practitioner, isn't it? It's either a Reiki practitioner or a fucking Wiccan. But these people, which they've been in some sort of a magical assault or magical attack, and they've tried to fix it, and they are fixing it. They're doing their cleanses, they're doing all of this and that, but the problem just starts up again and again and again and again, because all they're doing is like a doctor treating a bubonic plague by giving them a little bit of moisturizer cream because they got some sort of black cysty nasty pussy things on their skin. That ain't going to cut it, Chris, because it's an underlying deeper problem, isn't it? Bubonic plague, and it's all to do with cats, apparently. Cat's revenge. Isn't that what they said? I think we learned in school about cat's revenge, about all our good Catholic Christian friends. They didn't like the black cats, killed off the black cats. There was an infestation of rats, and the rats started biting people and carrying all sorts of nasty stuff. So fuck you. That's what the cat said. Cats are very magical creatures, Chris. But anyway, I think we've got a question. What about catching the punch and pulling in the energy from the punch? Can do that. Think of a single-use spell, these kind of candle spells where they hex someone. You know, you go to, I don't know, some chintzy shop like Lucky Mojo, for example. You buy a black skull and you buy some hexing, crossing powders and oils and such, and you get your target, you burn a little fucking candle or some shit like that, pray or something, and then you send that energy a hurtling, Chris. Imagine it's hurtling towards you. Which direction are you in? You're in there, Chris. It's hurtling. And you go, I sense something. I think someone's trying to kick me. Okay, because that's assuming they can get through your general aura, morphic fields and such. There's this idea of the put myself in a lovely little egg. Yeah, egg you're asking to be fucking scrambled, love. If you're making a white light egg, I mean, come on. Some of us eat eggs for breakfast.
I like eggs.
Well, some of us eat eggs for breakfast, don't we? In fact,
I
some
had
of
3
us
today.
would look at an egg and think, well, you know what? They weren't that appetizing, but now their energetic level, they're giving off a little bit of energy now. Suddenly I'm interested. Suddenly it's got me appetite going for some new age egg.
So just to push it kind of to that other one, so what you'd stated with the, you know, lots of people are like, oh, well, as soon as you can transmute energy, it's all good. Just to kind of add that extra layer of going, well, us witches that have been practicing a while are totally aware of this, which is why it's often, have you ever had those kind of little knife cuts where someone's happened to put some kind of poison or something into that tiny little cut? You're like, oh, it missed me. See, I absorbed it. It was changed. Not realizing that you've absorbed a deadly toxin and it's slowly going to eat away your flesh.
Flesh eating deadly toxins. That sounds like the sort of thing Our Lady Poison had whipped up.
Well, I thought as we had her session this week, I thought we'd have to have some nod to Lady Poison. Oh, Lady Poison totally needs a meme.
We should make a Lady Poison meme, shouldn't we? I tell you what, I have made Lady Poison memes before because I've got screenshots of her when she did some acting and such, but I think she genuinely would attempt to kill me if I ever release them to the public. I played them on the Skype with her and the Skype moot during COVID times, but I don't think she'd want them released publicly, and I am uploaded them to this software. I'll ask her.
Well, how about we use some of the B-roll left from some of the recordings we've done, because we own those.
Oh, this is very true, isn't it? You mean the ones where we said we've stopped recording, but actually you can't actually stop recording until you hang up, so she continues to talk?
Yeah.
Those ones. Oh, okay. We'll use those ones. I'll make some memes or something like that. Now, in terms of the question about someone asked, catching the punch and pulling the energy from the punch, okay? So the general go-to defensive mechanisms most people think of is they think of protective mechanisms in the home, which are quite easy to overcome generally. They also think of shielding, this idea of shielding. You hear that an awful lot. All that essentially means is being aware of your lower energetic bodies, your aura, that, and kind of sealing off, being aware of it, being able to sense it, being able to interact and alter it. Okay, we're not talking about that today because that's such a low level form of a magical practice that you can find numerous books, even by Llewellyn, that would tell you all about that. We're talking a little bit higher up, a little bit more advanced than that. Okay.
Plus, we covered that bit in was it Fortress of Solitude in season 1?
Oh, I think it was Magical Fortress of Protection, something like that. I know we've covered it before. Yeah. So instead, the first thing that when you go and you start your fights in the bar, Chris, you know, and you go and punch someone. Or the push is one of your favourites, isn't it? Some geezer be walking along and you think, don't like him. You call that fashion? Push him, don't you? You push him, Chris, right?
I love how you make up all this shit about me.
I do as well. It's a pastime of mine. You pushed him, and then the first thing, obviously, he's rammed into the cable. Ideally, you know, maybe he's knocked out. He hit the corner. Ow, 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 I've hit the corner. He looks about and he says, who fucking done that? Right? He's looked about. That one-eyed wonder. He's looked about and he's decided to think, who is it? The first question they need to ask, the Wiccan books and such don't tell you this. Who or what attacked me? That'd be the first one. Now, there's lots of counter reversal spells that you can go and buy off of the internet and such, where you light the little fucking candle and that, and it so apparently takes the energy from you and sends it back. Complete and utter bullshit. I mean, if you ain't protecting yourself and your magic from that, you have no business calling yourself a witch, unless it's like you've been only doing this like a month or so. So I can tell you right now, that's a complete and utter crap, right? We've got to assume that these people, the person that Chris pushed over is most upset and is going to go out of their way to attack or, you know, get revenge upon the person that pushed him. Much like one of those annoying little fuckwits with a high-vising clipboard or are looking to see how fast you're travelling through the village. Those got nothing better to do than to spy and really try and fuck with people's lives. They ain't doing much over 30 in a 20 zone. But anyway, either way, Chris, this person, they got a whole evening. They got a lot of time in their hands to suss out, like some sort of Murder, She Wrote Cluedo shit. Who is it that gave me that push, physical or magical? So that's the first thing. We need to give them someone. We need for them to think, because this is it. If you want to outsmart people, the best way to outsmart them is to basically flatter them and make them feel like they're winning, make them feel like they're actually fucking doing something, you know, and then we can all laugh at them behind the scenes, right? This person, Chris could turn around and say it was that person over there. You just missed him. Sorry,
Wasn't me.
It was the man with the golden mask. That was him. We need a name for our man with the golden mask, Chris. Goldilocks. It's Goldilocks. It weren't me. I am but one of the three bears. It were that Goldilocks.
Yeah.
So the first
Shadow or my other bear friends.
Yeah. The first
Bully.
The first thing you do is it's a very good idea to actually give them something to latch onto. If they're trying to trace it back, and I know the absolute beginner can't trace magic back to its origin or the direction, energy and such like that, but you're going to presume that most people at this point, they can do that. So they're tracing the magic back. They need to see where it came from, what multi-dimensional weird ass direction, and they need to find something. So you need to give them something. Now Chris alluded to, with his little mask wearing, a mask. The idea of a mask, creepy, isn't it? The idea of a mask is that it's a mask, it's a shield. But what is a mask? Because it's not the shield that, you know, you think of defending yourself against. What this is a trick, essentially. It is, they don't know. It is a mask of your personality, of your signature. So what you're essentially wanting to do is you're wanting to create a false facade. Okay? If I put a mask on, okay, like one of those anonymous geezers, right? Or something like that, I suddenly pretend to be something else or someone else. It's a very good mask. I could buy a Chris mask or something like that. It might be really, really, really good. You know, they might not be able to tell. The idea is for them to think that they are looking at someone or something. So how do you do that energetically speaking? Well, there are a number of consecration rituals that you do, but what you essentially do is what we see all of our magical friends doing a lot on social media nowadays, to create a fake profile, when you create a fake profile on social media, you interact through said profile, okay? And other people, unless they know it's you, they won't be able to tell it's you unless you give yourself away, okay? So this is kind of like the magical way of doing that, okay? Now, what is it that you get when you pick up an energetic signature or a person? You get some kind of sense, some type of signature of that person, of that energy. You can generally tell if you have, half decent psychic ability and some experience, what you're tracing it back to. Is it a spirit? Is it some goetic kind of creepy ass spirit? Is it an angel? Does it have that angel stink, Chris?
Ugh.
Yeah, definitely angel stink. Ugh. Or is it some, I don't know, crystal dildo waving, crushed velvet wearing Wiccan? Another type of sickly scent.
Normally tell with patchouli, isn't it?
Yeah, so
Patchouli's
you get the
smell of that.
stink of patchouli and maybe a neo-pagan. Okay. Right. So creating something. Now we have this idea of egregores and creating spirits. What you could do is you could create a spirit, but it's not actually a spirit, you see. What it is a fake persona, channeling energy into a construct. If there's enough energy there and it kind of takes on a life of its own, like our good friend Lady Poison. She's actually a real person, but can you distinguish Lady Poison from the real person? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Other people, they have their magical facades. Lady Poison never really created that to be a magical defensive mechanism. It is kind of, to a certain extent, a joke. But there are people that will go to the extent of crafting some tangible force, and how they decide to do that is very fascinating. So some people will try to create a spirit to wear, a shield to wear. It's a mask, it is gloves. You are working through that thing in order to do your magic, okay? Like a puppet, essentially. Now, when you create that, you could create it in exactly the way you would create a thought form or an egregore or anything like that. But the most important thing that you need to do is you need to think, A, it's detached from you, so it is not you, it is just a magical persona and so on and so forth. And it is separated, there is a separation. So you adorn that cloak, that mask, that thing. You create a personality in which to act on it that's separate from your own. Sometimes you see this very well in acting. They'll put on a mask, they'll put on and they're kind of typecast. Really good actors are very different on camera when they're playing the role of a character than they are in general in real life.
This is where you need an inserted meme about Orville or Ahmed the terrorist. Like, I need...
Yes, I should have done that. Jeff Dunham, isn't it?
Yeah, Jeff Dunham. Because that's where you literally stick your hand up a puppet and distract by using the same, throwing one's voice.
With great rituals that I've done that have been ever such a lot of fun, I've got people to get these things, which are just paper masks, right? I generally will get them to decorate the mask to create that persona. There's a lot of fun that can be had with dressing up in it, then designing it and the whole facade and all that, much like creating false profiles on the internet and pretending to be someone else. It can be quite fun. Not that I, of course, would ever do such a thing. But I hear tell it's great fun from my good friend on the Witchcraft Life group that is in no way, shape or form me. Okay? Now, breathing life into that thing, when we create spirits, thought forms, that kind of thing, you're normally creating a spirit with some level of sentience. But we're not really doing that. We're kind of creating a puppet. We're creating a signature, yes, but he's not sentient. He is literally just a glove or a mask that one puts on. But it is enough if you design it in such a way to look like something else or someone else, enough to fool the majority, unfortunately, of magical practitioners out there. Because if you're the sort of person, remember, that just does these counter spells, sending the energy back from whence it came, that spell, if cast through the mask, is just going to come back and hit the mask, which isn't you. So this shield, which a lot of people, as I've taught, if you do some kind of ritual or something like that, I normally make these facades temporary. So I normally say, if you're going to do a big undertaking, a big witch war or something like that, create the facade and destroy it. And then what that tends to happen is the remainder of that, the energy just pulls and doesn't really affect the practitioner. And can you get around this? Yes, it takes a certain level of psychic, ability to be able to see through this. But bearing in mind, Chris, I think you'd probably agree that the vast majority of people wouldn't even be able to tell you whether, Faye is pretending to be a fucking angel or something like that, or Mercury or Hermes is put on his glad rags and he's pretending to be something he's not for a change. A lot of people struggle with discernment in general. So when they look and they think, oh, this smells like an angel, kind of looks like an angel, it's got fucking wings and a halo, it's probably that fucker there. It's unbelievable how many people that this kind of sort of thing will fool. Okay, first line of defense, again, we haven't covered the lot so far. First one is when Chris goes and shoves that person, giving them someone else or something else to direct that angry energy and go and attack. A lot of people, Chris, when you go and shove them in the pub on the evening, soon as they've got some indication of who it is, they don't ask questions. They shoot first and ask questions later, don't they? Which therein also lies a beautifully brilliant scheming plan. Because what if your mask was linked or had an exhaust to something else? So you put on the mask, you do your spell, it goes to the baddie, the person you don't like, some skank, right? And that person then goes and attacks that mask, or is stupid enough to think that that mask that you put on, oh, look, it's Akate. She's after me, Chris. Akate, she's after me. Right, I've heard she's the right one. I'm going to go and X her like I X'd the moon a couple of months ago, right? I'm going to go X her this time. Imagine the fun you can have with that. That is literally tactics. Don't take a huge amount of effort. But here's Chris's idea of he's going to go cause some trouble, a raucous. He pushes that bloke, and then he has the audacity when the bloke turns around and says, who fucking pushed me? He says, it's her over there. She pushed you. It's that one. And then the guy runs past, socks this woman, Akate, and her fella and her dogs. Don't take too kindly to that. And then a fight ensues. And Chris runs off with his pint and thinks, Johnny could show that.
Jason has turned around and said a similar kind of thing, which is sometimes you just need a mask or decoy to buy time, even if it's eventually found out, which I think is a nice extension to what you're talking about there.
Unfortunately, because of the level of magical practice, you're not even likely to be found out by a lot of people. A lot of people shoot first, ask questions later. The people that do bother to ask questions are kind of like my nan, and she really needs her fucking magnifying glass to get out and say, is that you, Liam? She can't see. The cataracts. It's the cataracts, Chris, right? So the idea of this kind of thing where you do have people that are able to see, sense really clearly, is down to your level of ability to create that mask. And I would definitely suggest doing it just for the fun of it, to get a little bit of, experience doing that, because it can be a wonderful piece of magic. But that's not the only level. At the end of the day, it's who is the bigger fish, who commands the most power on a multi-dimensional level, because this is punching and kicking and stuff, cooperate on multiple levels. When we see general witch wars, it's either in the like serial killers and people that go off and beat each other up in the pub. That's just operating at a physical level. A lot of the magical people, they're operating at between an astral level and slightly below that, right? Rarely do you see that many people operating on a level above that. As soon as you can get to that level, guess what? You can beat the shit out of anyone below that level. Okay, so that attacking the solar self and such like that, most people wouldn't cope with. We had a nice little you want to tell us a story about the one where that other woman had a cracked chakra? that was
Ooh.
bleeding out.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
I like.
Wasn't she one of those Reiki practitioners?
She was a master Reiki practitioner, Chris, and she kept trying to fill up the chakra that would cracked. I'll let you tell the story because it's a doozy, and I need some water because I've been talking too much.
Well, yes, you are very good at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's all that much to say really, other than the fact that that she had this cracked chakra, which is funny when you say she's a master Reiki practitioner. But what she couldn't see was there was holes in it. So obviously this crack was a case of kind of filling it up with their, whatever she considered to be cleansing, and grounding and all those things. But what she couldn't see was actually nothing was filling above that chakra. So if I remember rightly, I think it was her heart chakra, wasn't it?
It was
Somewhere
a heart.
about that, heart or
She
sacral,
said
maybe.
that she blamed it on a gypsy as well, didn't she? Remember?
Yeah.
She said there's a gypsy woman that disliked her, and she did a something, and she felt the impact. She did a something, and then master Reiki practitioner, bearing in mind all they do is realign fucking chakras all the time, and that couldn't understand the concept of that energetic center had been wedged, punctured, and a splinter, from what I saw, a splinter had been placed in it to stop it. Okay, to stop it from healing. So what she was doing is this depleted like a fucking hole in a bucket. This thing was just, energy was just billowing out.
Because
everywhere.
ultimately, that's how the chakra system is used by Reiki practitioners.
Yeah.
Is you are filling all of the cups as they go up. The problem is, if you're getting all the way to the heart chakra, filling them all up, and then suddenly you can't push any further, it's normally because there must be a hole in that one, because otherwise the energy is pouring out, and that's why you can't push any more energy up. Because what she also couldn't understand was, do you remember, was she the one we had the conversation about what was the purpose of a chakra?
Yes.
And
it's always the Reiki lot that want to know the purpose of a chakra because they've never been in one.
And you just kind of like,
you think you open them up, you go inside. No, that's the next step. Go inside it, have a wander about, see what's in there. Oh no, I open it, and then the energy comes out, and I fill it up with all sorts of magical goodness, and I feel so much better. She was doing that, trying to pull the energy out, that, and it was just depleted. She was basically bleeding out from her heart chakra. It was not hilarious in any way, shape, or form, because I would never ever laugh at playing.
Obviously, you would never, because you're not like that at all, are you, Liam? At all.
No.
So what was interesting about her was obviously then the knock-on effect is she hadn't got access to anything above her heart, which, bearing in mind they only work with the traditional 7. There are so many more than that, but couldn't even master just those 7 because of this damage here. But again, this was down to the fact that this was damage she couldn't see. She could feel the effects of it, but because she wasn't able to see what the damage looked like, she wasn't then able to actually have any concept of how to remedy it. So these kind of, the biggest part you will always have is it's a battle of levels. It's a top trump situation of, okay, well, does this person have access to that next level of energy, that kind of next set of energetic bodies that they can see and tamper with? And you'll get with most mundanes is that kind of table tennis back and forth, where they're just pushing energy that they don't even know what looks or feels or tastes like, is just being pushed back, mirrored back to the person at which, well, in theory, the person at which it was fired at. So I'm going to go and be a little bit more nefarious, Liam, because you've made me the villain of the evening.
I would expect nothing more from a member of the KGB, apparently.
So, is a point of one, creating a mask.
Oh, I love a mask.
And you've got those sorts of people that will be good enough in order to actually go, oh, okay, I can see it's a mask. So here's my next favorite decoy. So my next favorite decoy is where you put that mask on somebody else. So they've recognized what the mask is looking like, because you've left the stink of that persona of you, leave a little bit of a sense of energy in order to make it more realistic, and then sticking it on somebody else. So therefore they're looking for the mask, and rather than kind of going, oh, that's just a mask, kind of going, actually they break through the mask and think they've unmasked somebody. In which situation, I'm trying to think of the episodes in Scooby-Doo where they pull the mask off and go, that's Old Man Smithers. And they go, no, it's not. It's Jeff. Like, do you know, it's one of those double bluff situations where they find the mask because that's what they're looking for. But actually, they've not really realised that the mask isn't on the person that fired it anymore. It's on somebody else running around keeping it warm.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because think of designing into your mask, into your facade and such, an obvious vulnerability or a slip up, as it were. If you do like get Texas Hold'em and the gambling with the cards and that, you have fake tells, you know, you give it away, but it's a fake one. Are you putting the energetic scent profile, a slight wisp of someone else's perfume, let's say, on it? So when you have that mask, you look at it and you think, oh yeah, that's, I don't know what, but what is that? There's something there that I sense. There's an undercurrent, an undertone, identifying them by their perfume, identifying by their scent. Do you put a little something angely? Do you put a little something Alexandrian? Do you put what? Do you put in it? Designing something in it. A mask also can shut the wearer down behind it, making them inaccessible while they operate without interference. Kind of like shielding. What is it? It's not. Well, it is shielding.
Cloak of invisibility.
A dampening field. So it can also get you in the zone. It can separate you from all the general buzzing and stuff like that, the static and stuff like that. And to a certain extent, you can realign yourself behind it, if that makes sense. You know, like when you get all of those people in a line and they do like the dances where they put their hands out and stuff, it looks like one person has got like shitloads of hands. Don't know, there's a certain name of dance, that kind of thing. You could put all of yourself, or even an entire coven, behind that facade. You know, groups of people will, I'm working on a group where we're doing something naughty soon, right? Even I think it's in another month or so, design. Probably going to be using some sort of mask like that. Now we're doing it on a bunch of people. A bunch of us are doing it on a bunch of other people, right? And that's going to have some basic levels of protective mechanisms built into it. But the whole mask thing, I think, you use masks, don't you, with your work? I've seen you. So you're obviously got a lot of experience with this kind of thing. And you have your go-to fun ways of working that work for you and have been, you know, altered and such for specific reasons because you've got experience with it. The generic people just need to get the concept of the mask, the concept of the facade, and then ideally when they start to experiment, they can all understand the weird and wonderful manifestations and alterations and changes you can make to that. Is there anything we're missing in terms of masked magicians, defensive magic and stuff? Because I mean, it is pretty simple at the end of the day. It's about who's the biggest fucking fish.
We've covered the obvious ones. So we've covered, you know, mask as decoy, mask as double bluff, mask as dampening field. I think is always an interesting one. What Will's talking about there, with this idea of the mask becomes the practitioner. So that is the decoy, the master decoy there, of kind of going, actually, there isn't a magician behind here. No, it's just the mask. The mask is the person. There you go. There's the mask.
Compartmentalizing your psyche.
Split
personality disorder. Is that actually two people or is that one person? Because we would see it as two people, but actually is it just the one person in the body? Is it a number of souls? great mystery, you can work that kind of thing into this, because when does someone start becoming their alter ego? When does the Joker become the Joker? You know, when does Batman become Batman, or Bruce Wayne become Batman? Who is he really? Superman. Clark Kent was the mask.
Yeah, I was just going to say Clark Kent was the mask. That's one of the most interesting alter egos. So yeah, I think part of it's that. I think also you've got to kind of consider from a defensive point of view, masks as a as a deflection, also as an invisibility, just kind of pushing that when that being becomes the facade for you, is essentially making you invisible. Like, it is part of that. There isn't this target that you are used to having and having to protect. It is that actually the persona's there, the psyche is there to allow you to kind of have that separation, that alter ego. What's Jason saying now? I think masks are one way to orchestrate controlled failure. It's like a confidence game. That's quite a nice way of putting it.
Very apt. Something about this kind of magic as well is that there's a certain level of preparation. As they say, preparation prevents piss poor performance. The idea of that is actually, rather than doing something half-assed, doing something that's got a little bit of planning. So you're doing something when you decided to go after someone as a group, as an individual, a coven, whatever it is. When you're deciding to go and do something, you actually decide, and you have to put some level of effort into it. You can't just say, I'm just going to hex them, you know, do this, do that. Because with another magical practitioner, that could end very badly. So a little bit of preparation and idea. It helps things build, because energy and such can build over time. So obviously we've planned a ritual, I think, for June, July, sometime like that. And that's already built, and you can kind of feel it in the air, little something in the air that's building. So actually having something that's structured in that way that you can then leave behind, because a lot of the people that pull in the energy and then fire it and go all kind of God mode and stuff like that, those sorts of people are happy. They even want that other person to know that they're the one that destroyed that person, they're the one that won. But you have to remember further down the line, you know, when you switch God mode off and such, that you may be a little bit more open and vulnerable to attack. With this kind of thing, it's talking about having a start, middle, and an end. So during that end, the end of the ritual and so on and so forth, that's all ties essentially cut. And with some beginners that really struggle to let go of their balloons, I suppose you could say, struggle to let go of spells and rituals and continue to dwell on them, doing something in a more traditional one, in garb, at night time, between the hours of wolf and dog or something, you know, is that approach where, okay, we're separating this, we go to sleep without our alarm, we get up, we go to the woods, we do our shit, everything's sealed in that kind of weird thing between nighttime and mornings, all very strange. And then we go away, and most of us can't even necessarily remember what happened, which in itself I found that to be quite powerful in terms of letting go of things. I've often done big works at early hours of the morning, and I get 2 sleeps in. I go to bed, I set my alarm, I get up, I do what I want to do, and then I'll go back to bed again. And when I wake up, even if I try to remember what happened, it's kind of phasing and almost dreamlike. Adds a little something to for the beginner, I find, that really, really helps with that in terms of letting go and
messing with liminal spaces.
Pretty much one of the best things about the planetary standard or stereotypical planetary hours is it helps people plan things, for things to go off at clockwork, but also things, if you are setting things up and saying, I need to go in the hour of Mercury because Mercury is a naughty trickster and I'm doing some naughty trickster stuff, it's surprising that when that is over, it does kind of feel so much that is in the past, it kind of just wash away. Some of these people that sieve and try to do a hex or a curse, or even go out on an astral and go and beat the shit of someone up on the astral world, they're still sieving, they're still attached to it. They're not letting that pent up aggression and energy go. which can potentially be a bad thing for the psyche, psychologically speaking, not letting go, but also tying yourself to that work. Have we got any more questions?
No, I was gonna throw another one in, and then my mind has slipped me. I can't think what I was going to say. I got distracted by what you were saying.
I'm presuming was it defensive or was it defensive magic? Because we've mainly talked about the mask facade because it's not something that gets discussed enough. There are other forms of protection, but
no, and I think we've kind of covered it loosely in last season, but obviously it was a case of it was one of many opportunities, whereas this kind of has focused purely on that. I'm just trying to think. So what have we covered? We've covered kind of the ways in which it can be used defensively. Offensively is obviously actually intimidation technique is one of those ones. So you teased at it when you talked about wearing the face of Hecate in order to scare Wiccans, I'm assuming. Is that kind of actually appearing to be bigger than you actually are, which I guess is also what is kind of working, is another way of interpreting those magical circles, is that kind of way of going rather than it being the protection of, or, you know, I'm Big Bubba's bitch, which is what we normally refer to it as. There are ways of you actually encouraging that as a series of almost invocations, as wearing the faces of those so-called protectors. I'm going to throw this in just as, I know it's Fausty and we normally keep it simple, but actually playing with the concept of that and actually kind of going, okay, is it useful at any point in order to do so? The reason I kind of bring it up is obviously you've got the kind of Eleusinian mysteries and things like that, where it was mask wearing was part of the actual invocation of those deities in order to perform things like the Great Rite. So in order to actually consummate certain unions using the Great Rite. But there are ways of in that embodying, there isn't actually necessarily has to be an invocation in the true sense of possession work, but in that moment of actually bringing forth that energy signature in order to kind of mask yourself in a particular energy, not just as a decoy situation, but in an actual offensive way of giving that presence of, say, I don't know, some ancient deity or Hecate or Persephone or somebody that kind of goes, oh shit, sorry, I thought I was dealing with a creature, and then pull it in order enough for them to pull away, scare them off.
That's an interesting point, because there are people that do act as go-betweens, mediums, priests, priestesses of spirits in general. So the spirit will possess the person in order to act on the physical plane. In terms of triggering that, when you have that inbuilt into you, and most of the strong connections realistically are done from birth, you know, as an intrinsic part of the person, as god, goddess. We talk about demigods and all that sort of thing. And another day, I did a ramblings on tier 2, I think, of the Patreon about it. Acting and having that energy channel and pull go through you. Some people will find that a struggle, and you're probably going to be crazy and be very difficult if you're permanently channeling a spirit or god, goddess, whatever that you're priestess of. Some people will use ritual garb, instruments, mask, that sort of thing as an on and off switch. So if they wear a mask, perhaps of that spirit when they work, when they're channeling it, you know, and means that when they put that on, the connection lights up, the connection starts. Because otherwise it can be a little bit difficult for people that do walk that specific path with when are you switched on and open and when are you not. And these accidental manifestations, or I should say possessions, can be a little bit annoying for those that don't have that on-off switch started. And for many, you know, that come from traditions where that's a big thing, you have to train people with that. A lot of people would train them in the physical world with physical objects, seats, thrones, ritual garb, that kind of thing. Because it just is logical, it makes sense to a certain extent. I was wondering if you could tell us any top secret protective measures from the, you know, magical KGB crest that may or may not exist. And of this KGB Coveney thing, is Mr. Putin still the
yeah. This kind of comes across as a slightly different methodology. So kind of pushing what you're talking about there, which I know we've talked about in the kind of demigod approach, but there are also mantles that can be taken on by groups. So, you know, and there are lots of magical societies throughout history that are doing exactly this. I'm not sure if you're even hearing me because it looks like it's playing up again.
I can hear you and I can see you. That's all that matters. Fuck the rest of them.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure it's coming across to the rest of them looking at my Facebook feed anyway, but we'll see. Let's hope. There is that kind of aspect of taking it to that next level of kind of, this is where we're talking about avatars, or having the gift of certain garb that is not necessarily in the physical world, but various different suits of armor, etc., that are available in as signs of, not necessarily in the way that we talk about ceremonial magicians and this kind of big bubba's bitch kind of process, but more these are gifted, gifted individuals who have passed on, and earned the garb of this one. So, you know, in those sorts of moments, we're talking about wearing ceremonial gear in order to provide additional power, additional access, getting you into places that you couldn't otherwise get in because you're wearing the right, what do they call them? Skins? Is that the right?
Yeah.
Is that just a gaming term?
No, that is a term that does sometimes get used.
So, you know, is another way of kind of showing that part of a bigger club, which will allow you to have access in ways that you wouldn't normally. So those are interesting ones. Obviously, the bonus points of that is coming with that power of that said deity or that clan or whatever it is that is you are part of. The downside to that is, again, like Liam says, you have these issues of sometimes you arrive to this this meat suit with that access that you didn't know was there, and then are suddenly walking around with ceremonial garb on with you not being aware of it. And these can often manifest in kind of dangerous ways, where they start to sap the life force of the person wearing it. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of an intriguing way to kind of throw in different uses of masks. So not ones that were necessarily made by you, but ones that have been kind of gifted to you, because those are a very different kind of mask.
Yeah. We didn't talk about death masks or anything like that either, but I think we need to talk about that on some planetary hour, maybe. But there we go. That's it for this episode.
I think that one would be a nice one to discuss.
Yeah, sorry, nice one to discuss.
That'd be a nice one to discuss if we did another death one in general. Maybe we can cover that under the kind of death current in general.
So there we go. There are more ways to protect yourself than to just run to your little magical altar and ask a god or goddess to protect you.
In the name of the god and goddess, please protect Lady Snake.
Thank you, and that is it for this episode of the Fausty Witches. I do hope you liked it. Goodbye, everyone.